Hello, I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at All Things Social Security and Joy Disability Law. Your video is about to start. I just wanted to remind you that if you click the join button below, you can learn more about the memberships offered at a very affordable price that can give you a little more direct attorney answers to your questions. Have a great day and enjoy the video. Hey, this is like a continuation of an ongoing saga of this Missouri disability fraud case involving multiple people. But if you follow this, you might recall a fellow by the last name of, and I used to always butcher it. It's either Rives or Rives. And I think he was 30 something, and he was pretending to be disabled and all this stuff and getting all these benefits. And we had heard it alluded to that his mama was helping him do this. So looks like that was so because mama has just been sentenced. Now, let me find out if you think the sentencing is fair once we go through it. 5 years of probation and 18 months of house arrest. That gets a little stiffer, but still, and she was ordered to repay $131,000 for helping her son fake a mental disability for more than 13 years, as well as defrauding the Social Security Administration to obtain benefits herself. So this chick, Zella Rives, or Rives, sorry, Zella, if I'm butchering it. She's my age. You're really doing a shame to women everywhere. Can I just tell you? Thanks, but no thanks. Of Edmondson, Missouri, bolstered her son's false claims of disability from 2010 to 2013, so that's about 3 years, by concealing his lies and acting as representative payee for him. She fraudulently confirmed, that was Gina Rives, whatever. She fraudulently confirmed his eligibility in 2019, concealing his ownership of multiple houses and vehicles, his ability to earn income, and his relationship with his girlfriend, her plea agreement says. She pled guilty in February, apparently, to 5 counts of theft of government funds and one of making a false statement. So she was the representative payee in on the scheme of her son. Wow. 13 years she was in that position. We have videos on, obligations of representative payees, but generally we're assuming that the disabled person is actually disabled. Crazy. Instead of the scheme. She concealed that her son was not disabled, and she falsely reported about his employment and resources so his benefits would continue. So as a representative payee, of course, she had to fill out forms on his behalf. All those financial forms, what the money was spent on, that he received, all that business, to make sure that she's not ripping off the disabled person. Bah, that's pretty funny. Her son, Gino, yep, he was 36. He had been already sentenced to 87 months in prison for his own disability fraud case and a separate case involving his financial exploitation of 2 elderly women. They're just giving us a refresher here because I think we went over this in this prior one. Gina Rives obtained 4 vehicles and checks totaling more than $800,000 from one. This is a vulnerable senior person. I mean, this really ticked me off when this happened. One woman, and used her debit card for personal purchases for himself and his family. He also executed a quitclaim deed and transferred a house belonging to the other senior elderly victim that he screwed, and put her house into his name. That's the son. What a lovely family, huh? Not so much. Imagine your daughter dating this guy. Yikes. All right. Bye, guys. Hey, so if the subject matter of the video you just listened to is of interest and you want more on it, stay tuned. Here's another one about the same topic, but a little bit different. Bye now. Hey, fraud law review. Do you all remember, this is like 7 months ago, after I checked in with the OIG and I learned of this Missouri case with a 36-year-old fellow by the name of Rives or Rives. Even then, I didn't know how to pronounce it. And I reported on what they were saying about him being, I think he had pled guilty at this point to some really massive fraud and elder exploitation and complete stealing monies from 2 victims. And at that time, of course, sentencing hadn't taken place. And I'm really big about the sentencing, right? So subsequently, there was like a part 2 to that because he had an accomplice and that person must have pled guilty or something. So I think we touched on that. And now I just checked in with the OIG, Office of Inspector General, I tend to do periodically, and here's what I found. It's all connected because it's them following up, which I'm really thrilled about, to report the sentencing that went on, not just the fact that the person was convicted. Because the last thing we want to hear is that someone got a slap on the wrist for doing something so horrible. Really, really horrible what he did. I'll link the prior video that explains what he did, but I think there's even some more details here, like his mama was involved as well. 57 years old. I mean, come on, she could be my peer. This is disgusting. So anyway, let's talk about the sentencing. So this is a June 27th, 2024 reporting by the Office of Inspector General. So it's only about 5 days ago. Again, this is the Eastern District of Missouri. It was St. Louis precisely. So it looks like they're saying All right. Overall, he had, financially exploited 2 elderly women while committing disability fraud. And he has been sentenced to 87 months in prison in order to pay more than $1.1 million repay. They go on to, refer to him as a 36-year-old person. He's ordered to return a total of 6 vehicles that he obtained from his 2 elderly victims. If you recall, he was a contractor doing a little bit of home repairs. And somehow he was able to get all these titles switched over to him, and he took houses. I mean, it was really bad. Meanwhile, all the time, I think he's claiming to be disabled, but I'm not sure about that. I have to go back and listen. Okay, so this is going back to January. I thought it was about 7 months ago when we'd first reported on this and how he had pled guilty. So this is the sentencing phase. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. All right, so they reiterate that he admitted to fraudulently receiving payments from the SSA in terms of supplemental security income. So that would be the welfare program he was stealing from. He had applied in 2010, claiming to have a mental health disorder. He repeatedly, and you know what, this really ticks me off because there are people with serious mental health disorders, and it's not greed, that's more of a character trait. And this is kind of why they have such a problem proving their cases. It's very internal, it's not visual. And when you pull off a long-term scam, and I can't even imagine what his medical record said. Like, how did that happen, right? But it's such an injustice. Beyond just what he stole, it's what people like him cause truly mentally ill people who cannot work, cannot function without great assistance in society, without help. And he literally is a cog in their wheel. He is, this kind of behavior is what makes it so difficult for them, partially, to prove their cases. So the damage done is more than the 1.1 million he has to repay, by far. The lives people like him and their behaviors put upon vulnerable, particularly mentally ill, severely mentally ill people is just appalling. All right, I digress. Here we go. He repeatedly pretended to be incapable of answering basic questions during interviews and evaluations. He falsely claimed to have memory problems and difficulty concentrating, following instructions and completing tasks. That must have been what he put on his function report. He claimed he had never been employed, could not drive, was unable to handle his financial affairs, and had no assets. There are people that truly have those problems, and here's this guy lying about it, right? He admitted to concealing his employment in the construction and tree trimming business, his participation in competitive mixed martial arts, his ownership of houses and vehicles, and his receipt of more than $721,000 since 2021. Of course, they have a sentence in here that says he now must repay the SSA 120,000 and change. I don't know if that's a typo or not. Maybe not. He also admitting to financially exploiting two elderly women. He obtained 4 vehicles and checks totaling more than $850,000 from one woman for construction work on her house, most of which was never done. If I recall, these houses were valued at about 135,000, as they were. So where do you get off charging the lady, whether she knew it or not? She was getting gypped 855,000. He used her debit card for personal purchases for himself and his family. He executed a quitclaim deed and transferred a house belonging to the other victim, remember there was 2, into his name. He moved her from her home and into a nursing home and permitted his mother to move into her home. How's that for nepotistic in the worst possible way? I'm laughing, but honestly, I think this is so sickening. I'm really more angry. But that's just how I, behave when I'm angry, and there's nothing I can do about it in particular besides review it. During that time, the administrator, the nursing home administrator had testified during the sentencing. I think they had already provided obviously information before, which helped lead to more of the investigation and the ultimate conviction. But the nursing home administrator testified during the sentencing hearing, which is the one that just happened, that the victim was left at the facility with 2 sets of pajamas, 2 dresses, a pair of slippers, and a couple sets of underwear. The victim received additional clothing purchased by the administrator through donations obtained at the nursing home. So not only did the guy strip her out of her own home, put her in a nursing home with barely anything to dress in. The victim was left without a single memento from her childhood or the international trips she had made with her late husband. A sentencing memo, according to a sentencing memo filed by the Assistant U.S. Attorney Tracy Berry. The memo also says that Rives, again, as you know, I'm illiterate and I don't know how to pronounce the name, was convicted in 2009 of another case involving the financial exploitation of the elderly and accused in a similar case in 2014. We didn't know that before. I think that prior reporting from 7 months ago was just about this case, but it turns out he has quite a record. Convicted in 2009 of another case involving financial exploitation of the elderly. What's interesting is he's been doing this round since like 2010, if I recall. So when he got convicted in 2009, sounds like he didn't get much more than a slap on the wrist, if anything. Because how is he out there doing it again a year later? Pathetic. We've got to lock these people up. Menace to society. I don't care if he's not pulling guns on people or, beating people up or anything like that. The violent crime is a whole another issue, yes. But these parasites, in my opinion, have got to be removed from freely accessing the streets and people. End of story. That's just my opinion. Okay. And a similar case in 2014, elderly people again. So there's 2 prior, although one of them seems to have been going on simultaneously with the 2010 startup. Or maybe they're referring to the other victim. That could be. I don't know. But certainly there's a 2009 conviction. Sorry, judge, whoever at that time gave him a slap on the wrist. What were you thinking? Well, because he was young. He was in his 20s. Who cares? Over 18. Okay. So in this case, he's ordered to pay restitution of over $1 million. And this is what he talked about his mom. Zella Rives, age 57. Shame on you, Zella. Ugh. Admitted helping her son with the disability fraud. Now, Austin James, a Jefferson County contractor, had also pled guilty. I think that was our part 2. I think part 2 might have been about Austin. He had pled guilty and admitted aiding Rives with defrauding one of the victims. But neither Zella nor Austin apparently have been sentenced. Let's see. Yep. That's about it with the details, guys. But he is getting, as I mentioned in the beginning, 87 months in prison in order to repay more than 1.1 million. So the only question I guess I have is, so what is that, like 7 years in prison? Is there a possibility of getting out before the 7 years is done? Does a third come off? I mean, he still gets 5 years or so, but I kind of think he doesn't deserve to get out at all. Just me. And I know that's really horrible to say because he's a young man and such, but this is a habitual offender. He does not care about other people, obviously. Is that sociopathic? I'm guessing he probably is. And what happens with sociopaths? I don't know. I mean, if they're not squeamish to certain bodily fluids, they might become violent. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. But either way, without that, he is a menace to society. He has ruined lives. He essentially, I don't want to say the word torture because that might be over exaggerating, but to take a lady out of her home, put her in a nursing home with two pairs of underwear and none of her mementos from her life. I mean, that is such a disregard for human life. I can't even speak. Okay, that's it. So I guess this is part 3, guys. We'll see if there's more. That was a big one. All right. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.